So before taking time, we would like to extend my gratitude to our guest speaker, present delegates, young scientists in today's 7th day of the International Virtual Seminar. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Namaskar.
On behalf of me and on behalf of organizing team. So, Mr. Siddharth, please extend the gratitude and introduction of the today's guest speaker and invite her with due respect for further talk. Please, Mr. Siddharth.
Dear distinguished colleagues, precious academians, and other research professionals, a warm welcome to our guest speakers and participants on the last day of our significant and prestigious event. It's give me great pleasure today to exchange ideas and share experience with other high-level professors, colleagues, and friends representing many renowned university and research institutions, along with members of relevant international organizations for the past 6 days. Got a special opportunity. I congratulate you for your commitment and active participants and wish you all the success. Thank you for your attention. Without taking much time, now I would like to invite you, Dr. Mallika Pathak, ma'am. Dr. Mallika Pathak is professor and head Department of Chemistry, Mirinda House, Delhi University, New Delhi. Dr. Mallika Pathak, ma'am, is an alumna of Mirinda House. She has been a faculty at Mirinda House since 2006. She is a recipient of award like Most Promising Innovation in 2016 from University of Delhi, Teaching Excellence Award from Innovation in 2015 from University of Delhi, and Australian Leadership Award Fellow, a computational chemist by training. She has many research papers in various peer-reviewed international journals, authored one book chapter for Elsevier Publication House, and has filed a patent in 2017. So now I would like to invite you, Dr. Mallika Pathak, ma'am. Please, ma'am.
Muting. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for your kind introduction. It is a pleasure to be here. And thank you so much, Dr. Sushil. It's a pleasure. We've first time met. I hope we continue to meet. So I'll just start sharing my screen. Yeah. Let me see. This is just a second. Windows, which is yeah. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. Visible, very much visible.
Okay, right. So, namaskar. आप सभी को, this is Mallika Pathak. As Siddharth has given my introduction, I am a faculty at Miranda House, University of Delhi. And today I'm going to talk about the binding mechanism of the anti-diabetic drug metformin. It's a very prominent drug which is used for the diabetes with the digestive enzyme pepsin. So let's take a look at what we are going to do today. So what we have done is in this study, we have coupled the thermodynamic results with the spectroscopic observations and molecular modeling so as to understand the mechanism of binding of this drug metformin with the pepsin. So I hope all of you know what metformin is. Your parents or your grandparents must be taking it in case they have sugar problem. So metformin as a drug, so sorry, just a sec. Okay. So metformin as a drug is actually a drug which controls the blood sugar level in people with type 2 diabetes. Its name is 1,1-dimethylbiguanide. And it improves the glycemic control by improving the insulin sensitivity and decreasing the intestinal absorption of glucose. So what we've done is we have studied this binding study of metformin with pepsin, but the earlier study of metformin with BSA has already been published. And as far as we know, there is no accurate and full basic data on the study of metformin with pepsin other than the work that we are doing. There are certain side effects of metformin. So you would see there are people sometimes complaining of vomiting when they initially start the drug. There is some sort of dizziness, stomach pain, or muscle pain when they consume metformin. Now, coming to pepsin, everyone has heard about pepsin since they were in class 6 or 7. It's an enzyme which is expressed as a prototype of zymogen and pepsinogen and is released by the chief cells in the stomach to degrade the food proteins into peptides. It has a single polypeptidic enzymatic change of 326 amino acid residues and a molecular mass of 35,000 Daltons. So you can see this is the structure of pepsin. It has been downloaded from the PDB database. So pepsin is composed of two structurally homologous domains. There is an N-terminal domain consisting of 172 residues and a C-terminal domain consisting of residues from 173 to 326. And both these domains consist almost entirely of the beta sheets. Now, when you do the oral administration of this drug, you will find that pepsin will bind with the drug, thereby it will alter the distribution and metabolism, which may affect the biological activity of the drug. Besides, the drug that you have consumed may also result in decrease in the activity of pepsin, which will lead to some adverse effects like hiccup, singultation, nausea, and vomiting. So one of the effects of metformin was because it was binding with pepsin. And so that is why you're feeling those vomiting, nausea, and stuff. Now, why are we studying this? Because the knowledge of the interaction mechanism between the metformin and pepsin will give us an idea about the pharmacokinetic and the pharmacodynamic behavior of the metformin in the further experiments. You can calculate the parameters such as mode of interaction, the binding constants, the number of binding sites, which will give you some theoretical information about the metabolism and the distribution of metformin in the lysines. So let's take a look at this study. Now, so the first study we've done is steady state fluorescence measurement. Now, pepsin includes, 5 tryptophan residues, TRP39, TRP144, TRP181, TRP190, and TRP300. What these do is they cause an intrinsic fluorescence of the pepsin, and therefore this pepsin can be used for the study of conformational change when pepsin binds with the ligand. Now, the excitation wavelength of the pepsin is 295 nanometer so that you can selectively excite only the tryptophan residues. Like I said, you have tryptophan residues, tyrosine residues, phenylalanine residues, but you want to selectively only excite tryptophan residues. So you will give the excitation wavelength of 295 nanometer, and you will record your emission spectra between the range of 310 to 450 nanometer as we have done here. So what we did was we studied the fluorescence emission spectra of pepsin with the different concentrations of the metformin. You can see there are varying concentrations of metformin. And what we realized was that as the metformin concentration was being increased, the intrinsic fluorescence intensity of the pepsin decreases. There is a decrease in the intensity. This is happening because of the fluorescence quenching, and what you see is a redshift of 3 nanometer. Now, what does this redshift tells you? Such redshift values were also reported for the binding of pepsin with the ligands and residues, which suggested that the microenvironment of the tryptophan residues is becoming more and more polar in the nature, and the residues are exposed towards the bulk solvent molecules. Therefore, there is a steady decrease in the emission intensity with the redshift, which clearly indicates that metformin is binding with the pepsin, and the microenvironment of the tryptophan residues is witnessing a change due to the increase or the change in the dielectric constant. So the quenching of the tryptophan and tyrosine residues indicates that the hydrophobic binding pocket of the pepsin is getting affected in the presence of the metformin. So you can see that this has happened. Now, looking at the temperature dependent Stern-Walmer plots. So what we did was we've already said that some quenching is taking place. So this quenching was analyzed further by fitting the fluorescence data in the Stern-Walmer plots. You can see we've plotted F0 by F versus concentration of metformin, right? So what is F0? F0 is the fluorescence intensity in the absence of metformin, which is the quencher here. And F is the fluorescence intensity in the presence of the quencher. Now, we know according to the Stern-Walmer plot that F0 by F is equal to 1 plus Ksv into Q. Here Ksv is the Stern-Walmer quenching constant and Q is the quencher concentration. In this case, metformin. So what we've done is we've plotted the Stern-Walmer plots of quenching of fluorescence with pepsin in the presence of metformin at 3 different temperatures: 298 Kelvin, 303 Kelvin, 308 Kelvin. Now you can you know that the fluorescence quenching can be of 2 types. You can have dynamic quenching and you can have static quenching. So when there is an interaction between the quencher and the fluoropores, then we say that dynamic quenching is taking place. And because the dynamic quenching involves the interaction between the quencher and the excited fluoropore, therefore it depends on the diffusion. And now when you increase the temperature, the diffusion will increase and the quenching will increase. So this is dynamic quenching. What happens in the static quenching? In the static quenching, a complexation occurs between the quencher and the excited fluoropore. Now, when you increase the temperature, the stability of the complex which is formed between the fluoropore and the quencher will be compromised, and therefore the quenching will decrease with temperature. So in the case of quenching of dynamic quenching type, when you increase the temperature, the quenching increases. Whereas in the static quenching, the quenching is decreasing because the stability of your complex is decreasing. And what we are observing here is that just see, when you increase the temperature, what is happening is when you increase the temperature, you are seeing that this is a quenching of the static kind because it is decreasing, right? So we've just said that dynamic quenching basically depends on the diffusion, and the static quenching is initiated by the complex formation. And here, this is because of the change in the temperature, we are seeing that the quenching is decreasing, and so therefore it is the quenching of the static type. Now, coming to the binding parameters. Now we've said that quenching is taking place. What kind of quenching is taking place? Static kind of quenching is taking place when you add metformin to the pepsin. That means now what kind of complexation is taking place? What kind of binding is taking place? We want to know that information. So what we've done is we've plotted a graph of log F0 minus F by F versus log Q, where Q is what? The quencher, which is the metformin here, and F0 minus F by F, we've just talked about fluorescence intensities in the absence and in the presence of the quencher. So when you plot this graph, the intercept will be equal to log K. Ka is the binding constant and Q is the concentration of quencher. N is the number of binding sites. So K, binding constant, N, number of binding sites. Log Q is the logarithmic of the quencher, which is the metformin. And so this is the param. So G here is, I've just written it here, log G instead of log F0 minus F by F. So when you see these, when you plot this graph and you find out the values, you find the values of association constant and binding site values at different temperatures. And what you find is that the value of K and N suggests that the non-covalent kind of interactions are taking place. And there is a single class of binding sites. Can you see that the number of binding sites here is 1.11, 1.24, 0.89. It's almost 1. So there is a single class of binding site which is there in the when the binding of the metformin with the pepsin takes place. Right? Now coming to the other kind of study, which is the circular dichroism study. Now What information do we get from a circular diachrysal study? So CD actually allows you to see the secondary structure, the folding and the binding parameters of the macromolecules. So what we see in the CD spectra, when you study the CD spectra in the far UV region from 200 to 260 nanometer, you can get a lot of information about the conformational changes in the proteins that are taking place, right? And why are these taking place? Mainly because you have electronic transitions taking place between the molecular orbitals which are there in the ground state and the ones which are there in the excited state. So when you have such electronic transitions which are taking place between the molecular orbitals, both in the ground state and in the excited state, you can see that there are conformational changes in the protein. Now, when you see the speedy spectra of the metformin, of the pepsin in the absence and presence of the metformin, you see that the alpha relic and because what did we say? We talked about the pepsin. Pepsin was essentially consisting of two homologous domains and they were mainly consisting of beta sheets, right? Now just see, the CD spectra of the pepsin is shown here in the absence and in the presence of metformin. The alpha helix rich proteins exhibit two negative peaks, right? One at 222 nanometer and the other at 208 nanometer. Whereas the spectra for beta sheet rich structure will show a negative peak at around 200 to 230 nanometers. So when you only had pepsin, and we said pepsin only consists of beta sheets, you can see that there is this black thing. So when you had pure pepsin, you only see one negative peak between 200 to 230 nanometer, showing that pepsin initially had only beta sheet rich structure. But when you start adding metformin to it in the ratio 1:8, 1:16, 1:32, you start seeing that there are two peaks which are generating. So just see the blue thing. You had two peaks. Then you also see the red, again two peaks. In the green, it is not so prominent, but again two peaks. Now, what are those two peaks? One is at around 222 nanometer. The other is around 208 nanometer. And these peaks show that there is a alpha helix rich protein. So what does it signify? That when you added metformin to the pepsin, there is a change in the conformation of the pepsin, which is a protein here or the enzyme here, and it has gone from a beta sheet rich structure to a alpha helix rich protein structure. And so the structure has undergone conformational change when you add metformin to the pepsin, right? So the intensity of the negative peak gradually increased without any significant shift in the peaks with the addition of metformin in the concentration range 1:8, 1:16, 1:32. Okay. Now coming to the what kind. So we've just said that pepsin was initially beta sheet rich structure. When you added metformin to it, it underwent conformational change and it has got those alpha helical structures now, and so you have two peaks. Now what kind of changes are essentially taking place? So what you see is when you do a detailed analysis of the CD spectra, you find that the contents of the beta sheet and random coil are decreasing. You can see the contents of the beta sheet and the random coils are decreasing, whereas there is an increase in the alpha helix. So just see the beta sheet structure went from 41 to 37.8. The random coils have gone from 27.1 to 25.7, whereas the alpha helix structure has increased from 11.5 to 14, and the beta turns have also increased from 20.4 to 22.5. Now these results indicate when you are adding metformin, it is changing the natural secondary structure of the pepsin, leading to some physiological changes in the pepsin. Now pepsin is an enzyme, so obviously when there is a change in the physiological function, that means the enzyme activity of the pepsin is also changing when you are adding metformin to the pepsin, right? Okay, so we've just done some spectroscopic studies. We've done fluorescence spectroscopy. We've done CD spectroscopy. Now let's take a look at the ITC, isothermal titration calorimetry measurement, right? Now, so this is the ITC data. Now, each peak in the binding isotherm indicates you are adding a single injection of metformin to the pepsin. So you have a plot of enthalpy change against metformin by pepsin. So the molar ratio, so it's the molar ratio of metformin by pepsin against which we have plotted the delta H0 values. So what we found was the data fitted very well into the two-site binding regression model. And you can see that this solid line represents the smooth line and is the best fit for the experimental data being used for the multiple binding site model, right? So this is the ITC data. Now let's find out what this multiple binding site model indicates. Now these are the values of the binding parameters for the titration of pepsin with metformin, right? Now, when you analyze this data, you find that the first site has a dissociation constant of 3.95 plus minus 1.35 into 10 to the power 3 m inverse, and the second site has a association constant of 2.25 plus minus 0.93 into 10 to the power 3 m inverse. Thus, both the binding sites showed equal binding affinity for the metformin. There is not much difference. Can you see? The values are almost similar, so they showed equal binding affinity for metformin. You can also calculate what is called as a cooperativity index. So the cooperativity index can be calculated using the formula 4k1 k2 upon k1 plus k2 whole square, where k1 and k2 are the two association constants, right? So this was given by Baines and Freire in 1991. And when you calculate this cooperativity index value, you find that it is equal to 0.92 for binding of metformin to the pepsin, which is very, very close to 1. So what it means is that under the condition of binding of metformin with pepsin, the probability of the second binding site being occupied is almost equal to that of the first. So we had earlier said that they are equal. There is similar binding site. So there's one set of binding site, and the one set of binding sites that we have are almost equivalent. So there is an equal probability of binding at one site and the other side. So now, what kind of interactions can take place between the drugs and the proteins? The interaction between the drug and the proteins can be of two kinds, specific and non-specific. Now, what do we mean by non-specific binding of a drug to a protein? So when anything binds to anything, so when drugs that are binding to proteins are binding by simple physical adsorption rather than the specific binding, or as what we call as lock and key interaction, that is simple adsorption of a drug onto a protein without any specific nature, that is called as non-specific binding. Whereas in the specific binding, what would happen is you have a lock and key kind of interaction. We've done lock and key interaction 6 and 7 standard. When you have a particular substrate and you have a particular enzyme, and because of the complementary nature of the drug and the enzyme, they bind in a specific nature. Now, the specific binding is normally, obviously, you will know that they will be stronger in nature as compared to the non-specific binding. And so you will have the association constant. What we find is that the association constant values that we had calculated indicate that this binding, the relatively low binding affinities, indicate that it is non-specific in nature. Also, the values of N1 and N2 that you are seeing are very, very large in number. Obviously, when you have such large number of molecules binding to one specific site, obviously it means that it is non-specific in nature and there is a high number of molecules binding to a particular site. Therefore, it means surface adsorption is taking place. Simple coating of the protein is taking place by the drug. A single layer of absorption of the pepsin on the hydrophobic cavities is taking place. Second, you can see you're given the values of delta H and delta S. So when you use these delta H and delta S values, you find that the negative values of delta G are obtained, which negative value of delta G is obtained, and also the delta H value is already negative, showing that the metformin binding with the pepsin is spontaneous and exothermic in nature. So when will this negative value of total enthalpy change take place? When you have van der Waal and hydrogen bonding kind of interactions taking place. So we know that Ross and Subramanian's data has already suggested that the sign and magnitude of the thermodynamic parameters associated with individual kinds of interaction will tell you about the association process. In the present study, what we found is because the enthalpy change and the entropy change are both negative, it suggests that the binding process is enthalpy driven and the hydrogen bonding and the electrostatic forces are playing a dominant role. So this is what we come from the ITC data. I'm towards the last of the data that is talking about. So we've talked about some spectroscopic study. We've talked about thermocalorimetric study. Let's talk about the docking, right? So what does molecular docking tells you? It tells you that the ligand can bind to the macromolecules in a particular binding location. It gives you information which can corroborate your experimental data to a theoretical data. So what we see here is the active binding site of pepsin is located in the cleft between the two domains that are there in there. So you have two aspartate residues, aspartate 32 and aspartate 215, and one of the two aspartate residues is protonated, the other is deprotonated, and so therefore your protein is active in nature. You also find that the docking score is around minus 3.24 kilocals per mole, and since this value is negative, it shows that there is a favorable binding which is taking place, right? And how is this interaction taking place? You have a hydrophobic interaction taking place of the metformin with the ILE 28, tyrosine 75, tyrosine 189, proline 292, right? So these are hydrophobic interactions. Metformin also is showing hydrogen bonding interaction with glycine 34 and chromium 74 and some polar interactions. So what is stabilizing this structure? This stabilization is taking place because of the hydrogen bonding, and it is in fact responsible for the stability of the secondary and tertiary structure of the protein. So the formation of hydrogen bonding has led to decreased hydrophilicity and increased hydrophobicity, which is stabilizing this complex. So very nicely, it is showing that all our spectroscopic data is in corroboration with the theoretical data. Also, when we did the enzyme activity data, we found that we've already said binding is taking place, conformational changes are taking place. Because of these conformational binding which is taking place, the activity of pepsin is reduced, and that is why you have some side effects which are taking place. Why is this happening? Because the hydrolysis of proteins to peptides and amino acids is being hindered, which is catalyzed by pepsin actually. And when pepsin is undergoing conformational changes, these hydrolysis of proteins and to peptides and amino acids is not taking place to the fullest activity, and therefore you feel some side effects when you take metformin in the back. So what is this data already telling you? So this data in fact towards the from all the thermodynamic, spectroscopic and theoretical data, we realize that metformin is in fact interacting with pepsin through multiple binding site model. The ITC experiment data is confirming that binding of metformin to pepsin is favorable enthalpy and unfavorable entropy driven change. You have hydrogen bonding interactions and van der Waals force interaction which is taking place. And what we found was that the value of the stoichiometry binding number N, which we determined from the ITC, revealed that binding of metformin to the pepsin is taking place by multiple surface sites on the protein surface. Also, our molecular docking data is consistent with the ITC. The microenvironment, the conformation of pepsin is getting changed when you add metformin. So what it does is it tells you about the molecular interactions between the metformin and the pepsin, and which tells you that conformational changes are taking place. And this is giving you a lot of useful information about the pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic behavior. Similarly, the thermodynamic investigations also reveal that all the interactions which we were able to see from the docking studies is being corroborated here. So with this, I think our study, it was actually very useful because it talks about a drug most useful for the human in controlling the blood sugar level and how it gets affected when you are taking this drug and what is it actually affecting. It is affecting the pepsin, and therefore some side effects are going to be there, but it's a very useful drug. So with this, I think sort of wind up today's lecture.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am, for nice and elaborative, informative and enjoyable talk. Really, you have delivered an outstanding talk because you are doing a really a good work in the field of drug delivery and several therapeutic aspects dealing to the pepsin as well, using several biochemical and chemical in silico analysis as well. So it is an integrated aspect of the biology, chemistry, and bio. Feel very learned after listening the talk delivered by you in so nice way. Now the topic is open for discussion. The persons related to the chemical science, if have any query, especially so can ask the question. I will feel honored to answer that.
Yeah, it'll be a pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Sushil.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Myself, Akhilesh Maurya from IIT Allahabad, research scholar.
Yeah, please.
Ma'am, my question is, metformin only have a side effect on pepsin or other enzymes on which
so actually metformin does interact with other enzymes as well, but so we have done one study of it with the serum proteins BSA and one with the pepsin, but there are obviously, because it is showing all these interactions that we are talking about with the pepsin, it obviously shows similar kind of interactions with the other enzymes which are present in the body. But the major effect that we were talking about, those gastrointestinal effect, are due to pepsin, but it does interact with other enzymes in the body. In fact, most of the drugs that we are taking do affect all the other. So you are taking a drug because it is beneficial for certain things, but obviously it has effects on the other parts of the body and other enzymes also.
Okay, ma'am. One question is.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Ma'am, do you have a study about the structure of metformin on which we can change for the reduce the?
So we did show you the structure, 1,1-dimethyl biguanide structure. This is available. You can download it from the databases, or you can in fact make them on the ChemDraw, and you can study their interaction with various proteins or enzymes. So you can download your structures of protein and enzymes and pepsins and stuff like that from the PDB databases. You will draw your structures of your drugs on ChemDraw or any such structure if you can draw. Otherwise, they are also available on databases and you can study their interactions. In case you want to go into the theoretical field, which I think this is what your study was, you can use a software called Autodoc and study it. It's very simple. You can do the mechanism studies.
No, my question is in each year there is change we have done. We can do on the in the structure. Yes, sir.
Okay. So no, there is no change in the structure of the metformin when it binds with the pepsin.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am,
Thank you
for
so much.
nice interaction with the young scholars, because they are very much enthusiastic in the same theme, because they are hearing and listening lots of the diversity in the content. Some are belonging to the specific field, therefore they are asking some queries, because if they are asking query, it means they are interacting and listening something very really or keenly.
Absolutely.
Okay. So thank you so much, ma'am, for
Thank you so
giving
much.
your
Thank you so
valuable
much,
time
Siddharth.
with
Thank
us
you so
and
much.
blessing with us by your kind words. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Mr. Siddharth, now invite the next speaker.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, the presentation is very and very useful for me. Thank you so much.